Hello, friends. Welcome to Pinch O'Clock, the podcast where we watch something and then we talk about it. I'm Joyce Selden, and I've seen almost everything.
I'm Danielle, and I've seen almost nothing.
I'm Nella, and suggestion is 9/10 of the law. You'll understand why shortly.
I love it out of context.
It's kind of menacing, isn't it?
A little bit. Just a little bit.
I was going for menacing. But it's been that kind of day.
A, it's been that kind of day. B, I think that is the correct tone when approaching these 3 episodes in particular.
Well, I do
I'm
feel
behind
like,
that 100%.
well, in order of watching them, I think menacing, why would you hurt me like this again? And menacing. I think that's the order of emotional feels for the 3 we're about to discuss.
Today on Pinch O'Clock, we are going to be talking about Fringe Season 2, episodes 10 through 12, which, okay, this is going to get complicated, but bear with us. If you've been listening since Almost Human, you'll know that we're no stranger to episodes out of order. So here we go. When Fringe aired Season 2, I'm pretty sure episode 10, which is literally about brains, that's the brain episode. You're welcome, brain fanatics out there. I believe that episode was the mid-season finale. And then during the break, they aired an episode called Unearthed, which was technically supposed to be in season 1. And it has Charlie in it. And it's just kind of there for no reason. And of course, people who watch Fringe love to like decode and try to figure stuff out. And nobody really understood why Charlie was suddenly back. And like the tone of the show was so different. Like if you watch it again and you're like, well, I mean, Walter and Peter are kind of in a weird place. And like after the episode that Walter just had, like, why are we here? And then we episode 12 just goes right back to normal with dealing with trauma.
You see, it's the lost fallacy, as I'll call it, where if you train an audience to look for clues in everything, when you fuck up, they'll think it means something, and no, actually, it doesn't mean anything.
Yes, this is exactly that problem.
Yes.
Like, I swear that person in the diner wasn't important. They just happened to be there, I promise.
Look, when you have the cojones to say that, you know, you really need to be paying attention to our show because we're like master chess players, you need some really good continuity on your team is all I'm saying.
Right.
Like, you better be hiring continuity experts and they better be on set with eagle eyes because that's what you need when you're trying to be this like 5th dimensional chess brain nonsense.
Yeah. I mean, but anyone with an eye for continuity watching this episode would
It's
know.
uncanny.
Would
It's
know
uncanny.
that it was happening outside of time, right?
Yeah. It's weird.
Everything
it's so
about it
weird
is different,
to,
to your point. Charlie's there, Peter and Walter are different. Astrid's hair is different. Just everything about it.
Wait. We can't talk about that episode too much because we've decided to save that for last. We're actually going to talk about 10 and 12 first because we love Charlie and we want to talk about Charlie for probably the rest of the episode, but we have to get there.
All right, so shall we start with the brain heist? Because it really is a brain heist.
Brain heist.
The great brain heist.
I liked this episode. Did you like this episode?
I mean, yeah.
I love this episode.
Look, the conceit of the episode is some galaxy brain, literally. But it's just out there enough where I'm like, if we're going to be talking about fringe science and pseudoscience and sci-fi nonsense, this is the level of it I want.
Yeah.
Yes, let's have an episode where we remove the parts of this person's brain that we corresponded to the memories that were important. We then transplanted them, hear me out, into the brains of donors that would work, put them on organ transplant suppressing drugs. But, oh, by the way, when you add someone else's brain to a brain, it triggers like all kinds of like manias and stuff. And then we had to put them into insane asylums for 14 years while we waited for the right moment to, like, it's so out there.
I mean,
it's
I was going to say, like, heavy quotes on it worked.
Oh, no. I mean,
it worked as in it kept the bits of brain alive.
I can't even. And it's also like memories don't work that way, but okay, here we are. All right, fine.
Yeah,
fine,
no,
fine.
I love the idea that someone else would be trying to figure out Walter's memories, and that's what drives them crazy. It's such a bonkers.
I mean, I like the idea of foreign brain tissue being like a splinter.
Yes.
That just gets under you and you just can't. And then like one day you're fine and the next day you're like, but then when it gets removed, you're like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Although, like, good luck reclaiming those 14 lost years you had within the Institute. Sucks to be you, I guess.
I know, these 3 people.
Yeah.
How are they even selected?
One was a mother. She was put in there. She was examined for postpartum. They did this operation on her. She lost 14 years of her child's life, which we have to assume was an infant. Now she's going home to like a teenager.
Right.
I'm just like, I can't deal with that level of like disruption to a woman's life. Like, I can't deal with it.
I think that we are going to blame this very solidly on William Bell.
I'm sorry, like Leonard Nimoy, again, best villain you could possibly pick for this. I can't even. He's just so warm and inviting, and I'm like, you. And I'm just like, I'm waiting for the moment where William Bell goes, I mean, one has to consider the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one, and I'm going to scream. I'm going to die, but I won't die as hard as that time in Transformers 4 when he said the reverse. And then I was very mad.
That's 100% what this is. William Bell would think that in the grand scheme of things, the emotional well-being of one mother is meaningless.
Oh, no, that's
utterly meaningless.
It is tragic, but inevitably worth it. And how many mothers die? You know, how many children lose their mothers throughout time and space? Like, I mean, what's one more on the cosmic scale?
He saved an entire world of mothers and children, presumably.
Yeah. William Bell is the villain I love to hate because his hubris does him every single time. Like, there's so many things could have happened to these patients while they were in these asylums. Like, they could have gotten into fights, and they could have hurt themselves. They could have hurt other people. They could have been like made comatose by the medications they were, that they were given. Like, so many things could have happened to these people, and he just did not care.
Yes.
Nope.
And I'm putting the pieces of your brain in places only I will find, and I'm just like, well, now I'm new to bit. Like, how did this man, who's been a frozen head for we don't even know how many years?
Well,
is the show trying to communicate, as far as we know, that Newton works with Belly, though? Like, only Belly would have known, so Belly would have told Newton? No?
I don't know. I feel like right now it's implying that Belly did this to stop someone like Newton, and Newton was able to put literally the pieces back together. Also, I just need to correct myself. I'm sorry, it wasn't Transformers 4. It was Transformers 3 that Leonard Nimoy played Galvatron on. I'm sorry. I will go take myself out back when we're done here.
I mean, no one else on this call noticed.
Lindsay is hanging her head in shame.
I know, she is. Look, my relationship with the Transformers movies is complex. I'm just rereading the plot summary of Transformers Dark of the Moon, and I'm like, I watched this in a theater. Anyway.
These are choices that were made.
They sure were.
So I do love the conceit that this was William Bell that did this. There are several things I love in this episode. And one of them is like this weird guilt that Peter carries around with him not visiting Walter, where it's just kind of like, but Walter literally was a different person.
Yeah.
Like the Walter that you are currently hanging out with was not the Walter in St. Clair.
We get to see pre-St. Clair's Walter in this episode.
We certainly do.
An excellent John Noble moment.
Yes. It's one of my favorite in the entire series because I call it the light switch moment because as soon as it connects, he is a completely different person and he is demanding and he is confrontational and he is loud.
Yes.
And he is just, where is my wife and where is my son and what are you doing to me? My favorite moment, to give you the contrast between the Walter we know and the Walter this is he just gets this smirk on his face and he just goes, "You've drugged me."
Right.
Yes.
He still understands who he is on the inside. However, he will not.
No,
Also,
this
he
is the
gets
man who
injected with so
experimented
many
on
things.
children.
Yes. Yes, 100%. And we literally had to cut open his brain to make him better.
And excise those memories.
Things that needed to happen.
And like, you look like the history of lobotomies is bad. But we've literally lobotomized Walter Bishop in the canon of the show, and we like him for it.
And he's a better person for it. Oh, it's a little icky.
It's very icky, right?
But I love new Walter. And I'm glad the monster no longer exists.
Yes.
You know, this was also part of what I was really trying super hard not to spoil in the beginning of season 1 even, where I was just like, the conceit of the show is like Peter is legitimately angry at Walter for very terrible things that Walter did actually do.
Yeah.
And the problem is that, like, I can't explain that Walter is a different person until people get to this episode. And I'm just like, no, really, he is an extremely different person.
Yeah.
But I do think it speaks to like the real life sort of experience a lot of people have with their parents as their parents get older. And the trauma of knowing how your parents hurt you and traumatized you. And then seeing your parents get older and the way they've changed. And then like their decision, like, to suddenly not be that person anymore, and whether they look for forgiveness in a way that is actually legitimate or that they demand forgiveness because they're still people just in different ways. Like, I do think this show in a way like does the sci-fi version of the how do you deal with a parent who tortured you, who gave you a horrible childhood, but then as an adult, you can kind of like them.
Right.
Maybe even understand them as they are now. And how do you reconcile the pain from your childhood with this kind of new person you're confronted with?
New, very different person. No, I feel like that's so real because there are so many people who, I mean, for any number of situations, let's say they were young when they have kids. Let's say they weren't ready. It was their first child. Yeah. It's really
maybe
tough.
They were struggling with an addiction. Like maybe they had a certain life path in mind and like weren't paying attention to what was happening around them. Like,
and then knows? 20 years later, they're in a different place. Yep.
Yeah. And maybe they have regrets, but maybe they don't. But if they're a different person, like how do you reconcile that?
Yeah. I love the character work in this show.
Yeah.
And this episode was a really good example of it. I think you see it with Walter and Peter. You also see it, not to get too off track, we can go back to Walter and Peter if we want to. We also get to see it with Broyles and Olivia.
Oh, 100%.
In this particular episode.
Yes. Broyles very much now understands what an asset Olivia is. And also knows why she is such an asset and why you have to like not let her, because like she's type A to the max, right? Yeah. And like Broyles finally understanding, you know, like she stood up for herself before and been like, I make emotional decisions, but they get me results, and like her justification for it. And Broyles having to speak back to her about that and being like, that was not an emotional decision you made. You made the rational choice. You made the, because sure, Newton gets away, but now, you know, we have a name, we have a face. If we lost Walter, we would never have another Walter. Like, don't beat yourself up on that kid. It's pretty much what he's not saying, but like that's the conversation.
No, he almost
and it's
literally
so
says
good.
that. He ends by saying, "Don't be so hard on yourself. We're going to be needing you too." And I was like, oh.
Although, can I just say, how dare Dollar Store Christopher Eccleston says, "Now I know how weak you are." To our Liv, how dare.
This is yet another example of a very blue-eyed gentleman
You can't trust us worth a mile.
Has the diversity to be like, maybe you shouldn't trust that blonde-haired, blue-eyed gentleman. This one show in the entire oeuvre of all of American television.
Can I just say I wasn't expecting the transponder chip in Walter's neck to come into play so quickly, although it gets
so quickly
squashed pretty fast as well. Alas.
It works for a bit.
It was a great idea. It was a great idea on paper.
It was. Created some beautiful dramatic moments for our friend Peter.
Truly. Alack, alas.
I also really appreciate the, like, I can't go into the MRI machine. I have this chip in my neck. And I'm like, did you really expect Peter to not remember that you said it was made of silica?
Right? I love it.
He was just distraught, Walter. Which I think is another really great through line in this episode, where you get to see Walter struggling with the idea of a cure for madness and how badly he wants something like that.
Yeah.
Despite knowing that
feel like he's normal.
He does. But then he's also self-aware and knows that in some ways he's a better person now than he was before, right? So going back to that, we're like towing that line.
I think that also speaks to a lot of the growth and change anyone can struggle with, of like, wasn't I, like, at least, I mean, I feel like I enjoyed life better when I was younger. I wish I could be that again. And it's just like, but you are the accumulation of all your experiences. And like, I always think a lot about like if there's one thing you could go back in time and change about your life, what would it be? And like every time I think about that and I'm like, go further back. And I'm like, but I would have to make sure I meet this person and this person so I could meet Joy. You know, like there's like levels of like, but there are still things I want to have happened in my life.
Yes.
I'm here now. So it's like, as much as you want to go back and like think like, well, if I could just fix this one thing, the butterfly wings.
Butterflies.
Shall we talk about episode 12?
Yeah. We'll use the butterflies as a transition.
I mean, there we go.
Speaking of butterflies.
The butterflies of murder.
The butterflies of facelifts. What a weird beauty lift.
What a weird not Twilight Zone episode this was. Twilight Zone, not Twilight Zone episode, truly.
Yeah. I think Walter Bishop even talks about like, I'm learning to embrace the cowardice of Cowardly Lion.
Yes.
Of, you know, this, like, maybe I will just never, ever leave the house because, you know, he's dealing with trauma. How about that one?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because his torturer is out there free somewhere and nobody knows what's going on. And then, you know, we have this town of very quiet people who keep to themselves. And the quote unquote secret is this hum over the town that allows...
was the result of a military experiment.
Yes. And
yes.
Yeah.
The military. So, yeah, let's spoil it right from the get-go. The reason there's a hum in this town is because there was a military experiment done here, 30 years ago, 40 years ago?
Whatever amount of time.
Something like that.
They were trying...
in the 70s.
Right. They were trying to make soldiers invisible. But they found out that the hum, actually, the longer you're exposed to it, you'd start to develop genetic anomalies and you end up appearing disfigured. And the lead scientist who moved his family here and like saw how it affected his, you know, young daughter and the townsfolk decided to change the hum of this thing so that instead of it making them invisible, they would appear quote unquote normal.
Right. It
but
changed
only when
everyone's
they were in
perception of them.
Yes. But then Danielle and I were having a ponderance of that. Wait, so does the hum still cause this genetic mutation? Or does it just like help the people who are affected by this genetic mutation? And the jury's out. But if it still causes the genetic mutation, just so then like the people already with it can live quote unquote normal lives, and then their children are still born within it, gets a little weird to think about. But then it feels a little too grossly uncomfortable with, you know, like the deaf community. Like, where that's just a thing that happens to people, and we have a perfectly good natural way of like living in a society. If you're deaf, like it's pretty easy. If we all just spoke sign language, like it would be just fine. But like, I don't know, the implications of this one are just on the side of like, did we really think this episode through?
And the answer is we didn't.
Yes.
Because
the answer is we didn't.
Because speaking of supports that exist in a society for people who are anything, right? Who are differently abled, who have physical differences, who have any kind of disability, any of that. There is a way in which we can put those supports in place, and a way in which everyone can live in society as a normal person, because there is no normal, we're all normal, right?
Yeah.
But what they did in this episode was to end with, there was no way for these people to live in society as normal people. And so they are forced to be sequestered in this little town. And once you are born in the town, because you were exposed to the hum, you can never, ever, ever leave. To the point where this one little kid who, I don't know, he looks like 9. He does what a 9-year-old does, and he decides to run away from home. And when he runs away from home and is picked up by a kindly police officer who...
let's just talk about like this.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a
The real
perfectly
MVP.
kind state trooper, not even like a state trooper. He's like on the phone with his wife. He has a young daughter. He's talking the wife through, oh no, but she likes that thing. Like obviously a person who is very much committed to like, I can't be there right now, but I want to know how the baby's doing, you know, very excited dad, big energy, you know. And then, of course, he sees a kid walking along the street. You can't let a kid just walk along this, like, and it's not even a street. It's a long, like, rural highway kind of thing. So he picks up the kid. Kid gets in the car. Kid looks, you know, like a kid. He gets over a certain point, and suddenly the kid, like, looks...
Transforms.
Transforms. Now, real MVP, he's surprised by this, maybe a little shocked, but, like, he still treats the kid like a kid.
Right.
And when he gets to the precinct, or whatever they call it, the street, the trooper headquarters, the other two are real not great about it.
Oh, yeah, they're like, real nasty.
Supposedly in this area, there's a whole lot of urban legends about, like, these deformed monsters that do terrible things, and I never thought I'd see one. And meanwhile, this guy's just being like, it's a kid. I have to upload it. I have to upload this photo because it's a kid and we need to try to find the family. Could you
Now, the unfortunate thing is the town's reaction to this is to come into, again, you're right. I don't know if it's called a precinct, but they don't want anyone to find out about their town because they are so afraid of how the world is going to treat them that some adults from the town roll up into this office, kill all 3 of the people who were in there, wipe down all the evidence, and take the boy back.
A part of me feels like this is why
for decades.
This is why you build up a community with the outside towns. You find like the sympathetic folk, and then you work out a trade system. So you could be like, so we need you to go into town and be us. And like, we'll give you all the paperwork for the kid. You can claim to be like, I feel like there was definitely like in 30 years, you could have come up with a much better way of like dealing with the outside world. But that's just not what the show is about. The show is about
anyone
monsters.
Who comes to investigate. Yes.
And the monsters were us the whole time. We were normal people with deformities, but we were the monsters. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know I mentioned this while we were off the air. I just think like the nature of a show like Fringe is they're automatically looking for monsters. And like you as an audience are automatically looking for monsters because of the nature of the show. And then I started thinking about like, they were cloistered away in like 1971. All of society would have considered them monsters. Like they would have been in asylums, and they would have been like, well, guess you're just like a non-starter. We're just gonna like, you know, hole you up somewhere and hope you die. Like, I'm not saying they should stay there. Believe me. Nobody should stay there because it's just like you're too close to the radiation. It's like, well, why don't we just have families live under, you know, power lines that give people cancer? It's like, maybe we shouldn't zone houses there or something. I just keep thinking about, like, if you were in the 70s and you were doing these things and this happened, my first reaction probably would have been like, yes, we are going to hide and we are going to create our own community and we are going to live here like people as opposed to out there like monsters.
Now, I don't know what part of New York this is supposed to be. I'm assuming like Western New York.
They called it Adena. I wonder if Adena exists. Keep talking.
All right, look it up. But here's my thought process on this because, like, hear me out. So in the 70s, like, and you got to figure for many parts of New York, upstate New York, you have the collapse of industry and like a lot of towns get super depressed and like nobody is moving there, even though land is really cheap because like there's no jobs, there's no nothing. Right. So there's that. So you have like the perfect cover for like why no one will come investigating, why Peter, who does his investigating, being like, no one moves in and no one moves out.
Yep.
The no one moves in is the part that kind of makes me go, wait a minute. Because we're walking around this town and it looks pretty nice, actually. It looks like some primo New England cardigan, like hot spice drink, town green nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, somebody is coming up here for a weekend jaunt from New York and goes, oh, wouldn't it be so nice if we had a house up here? By 2012, yes.
Some granola folk.
Yeah, somebody is like moving. Now, here's the thing. Now, I want to know who is the real estate agent whose whole job is to be like, oh, I'm so sorry, nothing's actually available within this circle of the town, but we can find you a really long space outside on the next town over, much cheaper, much more affordable. No one's selling here.
I think that's a really good plan, and I'm hopeful that that's the plan they have in place, kind of terribly by the conceit of the show. If they just allowed someone to move there and live there long enough, eventually that person would either themselves have the mutation or have children who had the mutation and would thus be trapped. So it's kind of like a self-solving situation.
So like a part of me is like, Peter's insistent on that no one has moved in makes me go, the town has built up ways of discouraging people coming in and being like, what a perfect, picturesque, pretty town. Because it's a beautiful town.
It is.
Who wouldn't want to live here? It looks idyllic as Swearjar.
A beautiful town.
By the way, there is no Adena in New York State.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful butterflies.
Look, there's either two things. You could either be on the west, like on the east side of the Hudson, like towards the north side of the Berkshires is the feel I was getting, or we're going all the way out west, like into like that real along the Erie Canal where industry super collapsed and like no one goes there. Like it's one or the other in my mind. Like still,
I'm actually not sure, but I feel like they used that like Ontario strip. Is it Ontario? Damn. No, I don't remember.
Buffalo?
But there's like a Canada strip. No. There's like a place in Canada that they use a bunch of little small town streets on. Storybrooke is also famous for, like, Storybrooke from Once Upon a Time is literally almost entirely filmed in this part of town.
I mean, I would buy that. I mean, but again, like, it's all the same, like, industrial history that then collapsed but it has the same, like, Main Street feel. Mm-hmm. So I get it. But again, like, this is my headcanon for the town. While also being the worst Twilight Zone episode. So
it doesn't even do Eye of the Beholder well.
Let's go back to my original exclamation about perception being 9/10 of the law.
Yes.
Because here's the thing about this pseudoscience. The suggestion is that the hum has been adjusted so that people see what isn't there.
The hum disrupts each person's optic nerve, which is why if you take a photo of someone in this town and then look at the photo, you're going to see what their faces really look like because cameras don't have optic nerves.
Yes, there's a big deal about we don't have any photos, we don't have any of this, we don't have that. Yeah, very much set in the past. Good luck when you get iPhones. Good luck with that. You're gonna have to build a whole like TikTok filter to correct for this now that I'm thinking about it. I'm
Anyway.
sorry, I just depressed myself. Wow. Wow, I depressed myself right there for a second. Anyway, but the whole point about this hum tricking your ocular nerve is it's still, everyone's brain is different. So after watching the episode, all I could imagine was, but what if everyone saw something slightly different? Because our brains all perceive things differently. Mm-hmm. And why would a hum make us all perceive everything the same? Why would we perceive the same person with the same face? Why would we perceive the same moth with a weaker wing to be the same beautiful, rare butterfly?
Yeah, because everyone's normal, quote, quote, right? Everyone's idea of normal is different. And even if you told me like, oh, this is a little town in Western New York, I'm going to have a very different idea of what a little town in Western New York looks like.
It would be very funny to me if like in this episode, as we follow different characters, like slightly different, like hairstyles and clothes, like maybe like eyebrows would be full, like little things would be different enough to make you go, wait a minute, what's going on? Like I could swear, is the continuity wrong in this episode? And then the reveal being when you bring the butterfly over the line or the moth over the line and Walter sees something incredibly rare and Astrid could see something also, but it's slightly different. Mm-hmm. And then realizing like it's a little bit of what you want to see. You want to see this kind of idyllic town in the middle of nowhere that just, has its, but then imagine say a black character coming through and being like, I don't trust this place. This actually like makes me very nervous. And like the things that a character like that would see if this ocular thing is sort of filling in the gaps of what you expect to find in a place like this and the kind of people you expect to find.
Right, exactly.
Now that would be a fun Twilight Zone episode.
That would be a super fun Twilight episode. Now, of course, my understanding of that is maybe they were seeing slightly different faces all along, and we just don't know that as the audience. The reason Astrid would have seen the same butterfly as Walter is because Walter could have told her what she was going to see.
Well, she was, already primed that. Well, he is convinced that it's this butterfly, so she's primed to see it,
yes,
even subconsciously. Which, okay, fine, I will accept your suggestion, but hear me out.
Much like she accepted his. Ha ha.
Anyway,
I don't even fully understand how this works with your optic nerve, because it's like then you would have this weird Pleasantville effect, right? Where like different people would see different things going. Like, yes. Would you still see a decrepit building? Like, are the warehouses fine?
Oh, I think the warehouses are fine.
This abandoned building, which looks like a mansion.
Because it causes mutations in biological things. So I would accept that, say, trees and flowers could maybe, anything that's biological.
I'm just imagining the most garden I could have if, like, I didn't have to actually grow anything and it was just people's perception. This is Emperor's New Clothing all over again. Like...
Right?
I could have the most amazing flower garden if I was just the power of like suggestion.
Mm-hmm. It is a time and a place of where it is. I mean, like, to be fair, I feel like the date and time of this movie was like, we were also just beginning to understand how sight worked.
I don't know. I feel like
we still don't really know how sight works. Like, color, like everybody sees a different color. Like,
I mean, I don't even know about that. I think it's more like we were on the cusp of like, I'm sorry, I have to say it, Trumpism, where we were just on the cusp of like white people defending like what they perceive as the life they need.
Yes, and I think this was also right around the time where we as a society were making the transition from tolerance being the thing that we were all striving for versus justice and equity, right?
Yeah.
In 2009 and 2010, it was tolerance. It was acceptance. It was never justice.
Yeah. Or equity, because equity would be that you can go wherever you want and no one will look twice at however you look. But for this, it was like, well, this is equality. You have a nice town, you know, you get to live there. You have a nice, like, local library. Like, people can come and give you tourism dollars because you're cute. But, like, you can't actually live anywhere else.
Yeah, you're there. We're here. We're not actively killing you or hunting you down, so you're fine, right?
Oh, my God.
That's exactly what this was.
Oh my God, did somebody in the writer's room go, guys, imagine separate but equal.
Oh!
But it's upstate New York. But it's not a sundown town, which totally existed at that time. Of course, the person in the writer's room did not know that because, like, nobody talked about sundown towns in 2012 if you were white. But, like, I'm just saying, hear me out.
What if we could make it work? What if everyone were happy with it?
What if there was
What if everyone agreed with it?
Yes.
What if everyone just accepted it?
What if the town voted for it? This is a gross episode.
I remember actually last week when Joy and I were looking ahead at the 3 episodes, I audibly, actively groaned when I saw that this was going to be one of the 3.
You went, oh no, Jahari window, and I was like, wait, which one is that?
I haven't even started talking about how, like, how the people felt very evocative of, like, Joseph Merrick. And I was just like,
no, they did that on purpose.
Yeah. And I'm like, this feels like a very purposeful decision that I'm not really here for. Because Joseph Merrick was a sweetheart. And, like, there's not enough justice in this world for Joseph Merrick.
And for the most part, the people in that town are sweethearts as well.
I mean, I mean, you know, some of them are. And
Half
some of them are the kind of people
30%.
who will murder.
There is a horror movie that is about like a family trying to justify like why they have to be allowed to move into the town because like obviously there's some weird redlining going on, and then it turns out that it wasn't racism the whole time. We were trying to protect you from our hideous deformity that you will also get if you stay here long enough. Run. Like, what a weird reverse Sundown Town this would be as a horror movie. Okay. I hate it.
Here are our choices, Nella. We can spend 30 seconds. You can talk about Joseph Merrick if you'd like to talk about Joseph Merrick, or we just decide to leave this place and talk about episode 11.
Joseph Merrick was a sweet person and deserved much better out of life. And he died at 27. That's it. Anyway.
To episode 11. Unearthed.
They really did this to me. They came into my house and they dropped a bonus episode.
My DVDs have this episode at the end of the season. When I watch this on Netflix, really? Yes, they moved it to the end of the season. Like a bonus episode should be. They shoved it to the back.
Didn't know that. Wow.
And I was like, oh, I forgot that they probably are showing it the way it was aired because it's Amazon Prime.
Oh, no.
So I wasn't even I was like, wait, do I hear Charlie? And then I hear Nella going, why is Charlie here?
I was deeply upset.
Which is
it took me a while to like understand what they were doing because he was just being Charlie, and I was like, oh, it's Charlie. It's Charlie.
He was just there, and it's such a cruel thing to do to people in a show that explicitly has alternate timelines, that explicitly has timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly. Like, you can't just drop something in.
No, you can't do that.
And expect people to think like, oh yeah, obviously it's a bonus episode.
Here's what I actually dictated. You swear jar just dropped Charlie on me. This is the bonus episode. Jesus, a lot of things are coming back from the dead in this one. Because this is also the episode wherein a young teenage girl dies, gets last rites from the Catholic priest. They are removing her organs for donor transplant, and she wakes up.
Someone didn't do their research on this episode, by the way. I know we can't spend too long talking about that, but someone did not do their research on this episode.
I mean, look, are there many stories about people like waking up from the dead? But like, you're operating on her, and like, I understand that this radioactive spirit jump-started her back alive in the conceit of the story. But No, no. I think I have to say that's not how death works, actually.
It's not how any of this works. However, surprise, this is the exorcism episode.
Oh my God, it's so good. I did enjoy it. And also, can we just say, the actress playing the teenager,
like fantastic.
Emmy award-winning performance, it should be, because it's so good. Mm-hmm. Truly embodying an entitled, wife-beating military man.
Yeah, Alice Kremmelberg is the name of that
Alice, if you're out there
actress.
listening, we think you did a wonderful job.
We do.
Amazing job. Like Alice is the real MVP of these three.
Yes,
episodes.
she truly is.
She
and
she
Charlie's
is
right there, and I'm saying no, it's Alice.
No, it's Alice. Like the entire time I watched that episode, and you know, I enjoy that episode. For me, it just kind of exists because, again, it feels like a bonus episode. It didn't make it into season 1. They wanted to drop it somewhere, so they dropped it here, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. But like, it doesn't add anything to the overarching story. Mm-hmm. It just kind of exists.
It was a bit of a monster of the week.
Yeah, it's a monster of the week. It doesn't need a It just doesn't, it has a lot going on while not having a lot going on. Like, it's basically a standalone episode. Mm-hmm. And because of that, like, her performance makes it for me.
Yes.
Like, I would watch this episode on repeat because I was just fascinated at the way she was able to just be both characters so convincingly. I love it.
Although this, So the episode comes down to this young girl is inhabited by an ex-Navy person, and we think it was like he was killed for espionage, and then it turns out he was murdered because he's a wife beater, and some other Marine guy took pity on his wife, whom he worked with, and, you know, killed him. But then he was able to inhabit a young woman and then tries to kill his wife again. And
what an uncomfortable twist.
Yes, a deeply uncomfortable twist. And then finally the young woman is free of him, but then we have a real, like, for those of you playing the home game Star Trek original series, Wolf in the Fold scenario, where it turns out his spirit is so radioactive, he just jumps into another person who should have died. And then I'm sure he will proceed to try to kill his wife for the rest of as many bodies as he can jump.
I know, so it's not bad. Over. It's just going to continue forever.
There were a million of these in Buffy season 1. I actually used to want to start a podcast episode of just like, so what happened with all of these little buttons at the end of these episodes that never actually go anywhere? Never, ever, ever. Just a murderer jumping from dead body to dead body. Just a bunch of eggs which have, you know, praying mantis murdering... Right? You know, human-sized abominations just waiting to be hatched in a school. Like,
I would believe, though, that this wife, given the trauma that she has gone through now twice, went into witness protection, essentially. And
I was just going to say, like, pulled up stakes.
Yeah, just pulled up stakes, left town, goodbye. It's time. Yeah. I also like that we get another example of Peter rushes in and then is held at gunpoint. Yes. Must be Tuesday.
He is a damsel in distress who doesn't understand.
Yes.
Does not understand his role.
Can we just say how uncomfortable one of the last lines the girl says is? Because like obviously she's built up quite a little crush on Peter, and that's super cute because like he's totally appropriate about it, and like you're going through a traumatic thing, like an older dude who is obviously hip and with it, like, is, like, telling you that you're not weird and you're not, like, a Satan carrier, and you're just, like, you know,
and he's smart, and he's good looking, and he's,
precisely,
you know,
like, who wouldn't have a crush on Peter if you were that age back, you know, like super appropriate age crush kind of thing. But then, like, as she's, like, leaving, because, like, she asks him, like, oh, is Liv your girlfriend? There's a world in which you could be like, you need to, like, I ship it. You need to do it. And I ship it. And no, she's just a friend who is a girl.
And has a gun.
And has a gun. But then there's also the reality of just, like, where she gives down I'll be 18 in a couple of months. and then I'll be around. Or like it's such a weird threat.
Well, she hugs Peter on
and she
her
does
way
hug
out.
Liv. She does hug Liv.
So what I'm
like,
saying is, she hugs Peter.
Yes.
And then after she hugs Peter, she also hugs Liv.
Yes.
So she's disguising it as I'm hugging everyone. This is just a regular goodbye. Except that as she pulls away from Liv, she whispers, I'll be 18 in a year. Don't wait too long to make your move.
But I also like the implication where it's just like, if you make your move, I won't. I mean, I'm just saying. Again, I'm like, is this like a a live journal shipper who is just like real life shipping, and she's just like, I have to say something. Okay, look.
Here it is.
But also, like, I do also have a crush on this like real life character, and I would hit it in a heartbeat. But even I have boundaries as a fan fiction writer. Thank you kindly. I don't know. I still really love the character, even though it's such a weird line out of nowhere. And I'm like, oh, saucy.
I mean, it's this weird point of like imagining this in season 1.
Yes.
Where they're just kind of playing the little like slight cat and mouse game where like they're getting along, but they're kind of flirting, but then kind of not. Mm-hmm. And like she's probably still hung up on
John.
on John.
Yeah.
And frickin' John Scott.
Yeah.
Who did not deserve your time.
No, he tried to make up for it, but on the end, like, you were best to drop him. Well, anyway, I don't know. I feel like we've covered these 3 episodes.
Yeah, 100%.
I feel like we have to.
Do we have one more things?
So, episode 10 is a great advertisement for why Spotify is so convenient. Because if we just had Spotify, Astrid wouldn't have left Walter.
It's literally the moment of like, wait, I'll just go to the office and get your album. And Nella went, can't you just pull up Spotify? Oh, wait.
Oh, wait. No, it's 2012. Oh, no, we don't even have like, and I'm sure like Apple Music would have been awful for those sort of like
finding music anywhere. Kind of
we can find your dad on Spotify, Joy, but in 2012, I'm sure we wouldn't have found this like obscure, record nonsense. Check out Joy's dad's album on Spotify. It's great.
I mean, yes.
Everyone should do it.
To be fair, okay, so if you just want to look up some really rad Japanese music that my father did for about 40 years, man, if you just look up his name, you'll probably find it. But he goes by Ronnie Nyogetsu Reishin Selden on Spotify. And if you want to listen to some acid rock, he also happened to be in a band called the Hamilton Face Band.
This is why I'm so sad, because I'm like, your dad and I would have been the best buds. And
I know.
I never got to meet him, and I'm just like, he made an acid rock band about the fact that Alexander Hamilton is in the $10 bill.
Yeah.
What a king. That's a king swear jar.
It's true. It's very true. I mean, I feel like that's my one more thing. The acid rock band that my father was in.
Yes.
Called Hamilton Face Band.
And now my uncle is on like the hunt to try to find the record of your dad's music, of his acid rock band. He's like,
I'll find it. He'll find it somewhere.
If you have found, insert name of
Hamilton
album here.
Face name. Yeah.
Yeah. Feel free to directly contact us and see how we can get it into our hands because of reasons. Anyway.
Danielle, did you have one more thing?
I'm kind of juggling too, but they're both so quick and they're both about Astrid. I'm just gonna say them both.
Do it.
Okay. 1, we have yet another item to add to Astrid's CV. She's an avid lepidopterist.
Yes. She has so many beautiful hobbies.
Which is a word that this show taught me.
Yeah, same.
I mean, I knew the word. I'm just not going to sit here trying to pronounce it. If I hear it, I know it.
The number of times this show conveniently adds things to Astrid's CV just so they can make something make sense. It's just, whatever. It's fine. She's an avid lepidopterist.
Yeah. You know what? She can have multiple interests, and I love that for her. But I also understand it's only because they're like, we don't know what else to do with Astrid, so she'll be the catch-all. Justice for Astrid.
Justice for Astrid. And the thing number 2 is that at one point in episode 11, Astrid refers to all of these videos as Walter's scariest home videos.
Yes.
And that is going to be how I refer to all of the rest of his scientific experiment videos from here on out, because it's excellent.
Delightful. Truly perfect.
We did it, everyone. We would love to hear from you. Please check us out at Binge O'Clock Pod on Twitter and Facebook, where you can answer the question, if you could change one thing about your life, would you? You can also email us at bingeoclockpod@gmail.com. And don't forget, we have a Patreon. Find us at patreon.com/BachPod.
That's right. And tell your friends, tell your family, tell your loved ones, tell the live lobsters in your life about Binge O'Clock, and we will see you next time.